In the Watch Order Task Force, the movies are represented by idiots who think they know the perfect sequence in which viewing pleasure can be achieved. These are their excuses. Hey there, I'm Watch Order Cadet AP, and today I'm on my third assignment in the Watch Order Task Force, and the captain says if I crack this third case, he'll let me give free back rubs to everyone in the department. I'm a lucky boy, I tell you that. I really hope I can crack this case to give everyone a well-deserved back rub that they all deserve in this department by my hands. So, let's get to it. What is the assignment for today? Well, the assignment is this. I must work out the best watch order of the MCU phases. That is Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3. We won't be touching Phase 4 because it's still in the process of being made, and we've only had a few releases so far of Phase 4 of the MCU. So it'll be the Marvel Cinematic Universe's 1 to 3 phases I'll be judging. And how is this episode going to work out? So I will first of all give you my first choice of the best phase I think you to get the best possible viewing pleasure of the MCU. I'll give you my first choice first of all, and then I will give you my middle of the road choice, my second choice of the 3 phases, and then I will give you my third and final choice, the last choice really, the phase that I believe is not really the best out of the 3, and I feel like the phase that you'll probably get the least viewing pleasure from. So it'll go from best viewing pleasure to second best to third best in viewing pleasure on the viewing pleasure scale, ladies and gents. So let me get to it. Let me get my thinking cap on and let me give you my Watch Order Task Force order of the MCU phases. So to start this assignment off, I'm going to give you my first choice, as I said, and I will, throughout these 3 picks, give you some of my standout performers of movies out of these phases. But my first choice, the one I feel like you can get the best viewing pleasure from the MCU is Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 3. And you're probably saying, why is your first pick of the watch order the third phase of this? And I will tell you why. The reason is, Phase 3 of the MCU just offers a whole host of different types of movies. It's got loads of standout performers as well, some really great movies, from team-up movies to solo films. And it is just a phenomenal amount of great films in here, for me personally, as a movie fan. Let's start off with it. The Phase 3 consists of these following movies. First of all, we've got Captain America Civil War, the third Captain America movie starring Chris Evans. We've got then Doctor Strange, the first Doctor Strange movie. Civil War came out May 6th, 2016. So that was the start of Phase 3 in 2016. Doctor Strange also came out in 2016, November off. Then we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That was in May 5th, 2017, so we fast forward a year or so. Spider-Man Homecoming came out in July of 2017. Thor Ragnarok came out in November 2017. Black Panther was February 2018. Avengers Infinity War, the second of that 2-part Endgame saga. Infinity War came out in April 2018. Ant-Man and the Wasp, the second of the Ant-Man movies, came out in July 2018. Captain Marvel, the debut of that character of Captain Marvel, came out in March 2019. And then we have Avengers Endgame, the sort of like the final big team up of a lot of the original main Avengers characters. That came out in April 2019. That was the part 2 of that Infinity saga, Infinity War and Endgame movies. But that wasn't the end movie of Phase 3. The end movie was Spider-Man Far From Home. That was the last movie of Phase 3 in the MCU. And, that was also a great movie. It had Mysterio as the main villain in that one. A really, really good movie. But there's, there's tons of great movies in Phase 3 for me personally. But let me maybe pick out one or two uh, really good picks here, and why they stand out as really the high performers of this phase, and why they make me choose this phase as my first pick in a watch order for. And this is a watch order for new viewers and old viewers. If I was going to recommend to someone who's never seen an MCU movie before, I would say watch Phase 3 first, because I feel like a lot of it has developed into something great now. The stories, the characters, and I feel like some of them you can still watch them as a new viewer going in and still enjoy them. You don't really need to know as much about what has come before. For me personally, that is the way I feel anyway. But let's talk about some standouts here. Two standouts I'm going to pick. First of all, it has got to be my main standout. First standout anyway is Thor Ragnarok. Chris Hemsworth returns in that role for the third movie in the Thor trilogy. And this was Taika Waititi's directional debut in the MCU as well. He has done a lot of indie type films before this. He also was the creator or co-creator of What We Do in the Shadows, the movie, the TV show as well. Great director, and really just reinvigorated that character of Thor for me, and that movie franchise as well. Because I thought the first two movies, although they weren't awful, I don't feel like they were as good as a lot of the other MCU movies, like Iron Man or Captain America. I feel like Thor was just a little bit behind the race in all of the other films, but Ragnarok really changed it for me. It had it had a new power surge to it. It added a lot of comedy in there. It added, tons of humor. It felt more like a mini team-up movie with you got the Incredible Hulk in it. Bruce Banner's in this movie. We see a more developed Bruce Banner also. We see him, he can talk, the Hulk, in this movie. We see the Valkyrie. We see Loki teaming up. We see then the villain of the piece, Hela, the sister of Thor and Loki. We see so much great stuff going on in this movie, but it's at the backbone. It's just it has action, it has humor, it has overall a great entertaining feel. It's a fantastic film. I love Thor. I think his character's really developed throughout these three movies, but this third one is really it made him a standout performer for me in this sort of Avengers world, the MCU world. And I love it for little things like the soundtrack. This synthwave synthesizer 80s style soundtrack really blends well with the sort of some of the goofiness in this movie. And we see Thor is stripped away from being Thor. His hammer's destroyed, and we see him finding himself really, and it feels like it's finding, for the actual movie, is actually finding itself and finding its feet in a new world and showing that I can do something different. I can be a different type of movie, but I can also be this huge god-powered Marvel hero. But I can be cool. I can do silly things as well. It was on all different fronts. It offered and it delivered for me personally. Ragnarok. Great movie, great standout of Phase 3, and really hits home to why I choose this. I would pick this out for anyone who's never seen an MCU movie before. Put it on, and I feel like the majority of people would laugh at this movie or say, wow, the action in this movie is really cool and it's really a fun movie. It's just an entertainment classic film, and that's why it is one of my top picks. But the second pick has got to be, for me, which is another standout performer in this watch order for the first pick, is Avengers Endgame, the second part, and sort of the final chapter, really, of the Infinity Saga. I know you could say Spider-Man Far From Home was the last one in the Phase 3, but the Infinity Saga is very much over when it gets to this movie. Really, it is just a terrific final chapter, and we see the deaths of a significant character. If you've not watched Endgame, I'm sure you're not really an MCU fan, but I'm going to talk about spoilers, and I'm not even going to give you a warning because it's been too long now. Spoilers are not needed, but we see the death of the great hero Tony Stark, Iron Man, who puts his own life on the line, and he loses his life to save everyone else. And I mean, it's such a unique, such a special moment in film history for me, that where he sacrifices himself. And then we see, again, another original Avenger in Captain America, Steve Rogers, going back in time, and then he comes back an old man, and he's obviously lived a life, and he's decided to walk away as an Avenger, and passing the torch then to Sam Wilson, who then becomes Captain America in the Captain America TV show, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show. There's two characters there who are leaving the fold and passing the torch for these to these new generation of Avengers, these new characters coming in, and I think it's just a great passing of the torch moment. But it's also a great final chapter, a great war, great big battles in between, featuring just an absolute massive amount of superheroes versus villains. The elements of time travel within this movie are really cool as well. Like when they revisiting older films, like the first Avengers movie, and then we going back further into the past to see like Tony Stark's father, Howard Stark. It's a really good story. I really like this film, and I think it really delivered a great end moment and a great end film to all of these films prior to this. Every phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, every movie that came before, it all went into this one Endgame movie, and it was a big payoff. It worked, and it makes me this is why phase 3 for me is the best possible phase to watch. And you've got other great movies in there. You've got, I think, like Black Panther is another great pick. Doctor Strange, Captain America Civil War, they would be other ones that I would say have really lifted the pick for me to make this onto the case file for my first choice. And as a first pick, I am proud to say Phase 3 would be my first pick in the watch order for the best viewing pleasure for new viewers and for old viewers. Anyone who wants to refresh their eyes of the MCU, you've got to start with Phase 3 for me. So my second choice on the case file today, my second choice in this watch order, is Phase number 1. Phase 1 is my second choice in the watch order of the Watch Order Task Force case file today. And why is Phase 1 my second choice? Well, first of all, Phase 3 was just so great. And I as much as I enjoy Phase 1, Phase 3 couldn't be top. But Phase 1 deserves to be second in the order, definitely so. And let me give you the movies of Phase 1. And the sort of like the time period these movies were coming out. So first of all, we start off with the first movie of the MCU was Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie starring Robert Downey Jr. That came out in May 2nd, 2008. We then go to The Incredible Hulk starring Ed Norton. That was June of 2008. Then we got the Iron Man 2 movie in May 2010. The first Thor movie in May of 2011. Captain America, the first Avenger, came out in June of 2011. And The Avengers, the first team-up movie, came up in May of 2012. So we got that 4-year period here of the Phase 1. And look, it's a really great debut of this Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, this come out, and let me talk about two of my standouts here. Two of my standouts, first of all, I've got to go with the very first film, Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie. I'm going into this, I don't know anything about the character. Iron Man, I'd heard the name before, but look, I'd never read the comics as a kid, so I didn't really know what Iron Man was, who Iron Man was, who Tony Stark was. In all honesty, I didn't really know much about the actor, Robert Downey Jr. at that point. I mean, I didn't really know much about his previous films. So coming into this, it was very like an unknown prospect, and it wasn't going into this with the, thinking this is going to be what we see the MCU as now. It was different because before that we had very limited amounts of superhero movies. We had the Spider-Man movies, the X-Men movies. It was a very limited number. So now we're getting this Iron Man, this new hero. It's not like a Batman movie. It's not like a well-known superhero we all know. It's an unknown superhero, and we're getting this actor who's kind of not like an A-list actor thrown into the main here as the front runner, as the lead actor of this movie, taking on the role of Tony Stark. What can I say though? This movie, from the music to the like AC/DC, from the great origin story of Tony Stark becoming Iron Man and building that first the Mark unit or Mark armor. What is it? Mark One of Iron Man armor. I can't remember what it's called. Is it I can't remember what did they call it in I think there's like a name for the Phase One or Mark One of the Iron Man armor, and the big bulky one. Anyway, there's a special name, I'm pretty sure. But either way, it's just so fresh for a superhero movie. It was a fresh story. It felt fresh because it was a superhero we'd never seen anything of, and it was just hard hitting. It was all out action. Seeing this superhero, this guy flying in this suit who could fly around, and he was just super strong in this Iron Man suit, but really deep down, he was just a normal guy who was just like super rich, who was super smart, who could build his own Iron Man suits. It was great, and it was just a great start to this cinematic universe. And what I mean, I don't think any of us expected this was going to expand into what the MCU became. And we do see Tony Stark's character make well, first of all, we see the first post-credit scene in this movie. We see Nick Fury in the post-credits of this movie. And then Tony Stark debuts in a post-credit scene in the Incredible Hulk movie with Thunderbolt Ross. But this is the first movie we got the post-credit scene and the tease of, the wider story of what's going to happen here, the Avengers. And it's great. And it really is like a lead up. It's like this is setting the foundations to the final film in Phase 1, the Avengers movie. This is setting it all up. This is the origins of Iron Man. Also the origins, the seeds in the ground for the Avengers, the first Avengers movie. But Robert Downey Jr. was just a show stealer. He is great in that role. I couldn't imagine anyone else taking that role now. He's really grown into that role as well. And that role, his character arc over the 3 phases has definitely developed, and he's turned into something else. When you look at him here, and then you look at him in Endgame, very different character, and it's nice to see that there's been a lot of character progression as well. It's great. But that is one of the standout movies. The second standout movie for me in this first Phase 1 for the second pick has got to be The Avengers, the last movie in Phase 1. So we go off the first movie and then the last movie of Phase 1. The Avengers, just the first time seeing a big team-up movie in my lifetime. Never seen anything like this before. And it has Captain America, it has Thor, it has Iron Man. It's just brilliant. You have the Incredible Hulk, you have Black Widow, you have Hawkeye as well thrown into the mix, all taking on Loki, the evil villain of this first Avengers movie. And it is just terrific. The way they give everyone airtime here, and it doesn't feel like anyone is missed out or no one is less significant than the other actor or the other character. Everyone feels it's like it is a team effort, and it really works well, and everyone gets the time to shine, and it doesn't feel like anyone gets little time. It just delivers on every level. It was just a really big blockbuster feel to it as well. It felt bigger than Iron Man. It felt bigger than all of the individual solo movies, which was great. And it was just a spectacular film, an absolutely spectacular film. Joss Whedon was the director on this first movie. And, he came in from doing, what was it? I think he did like The Firefly, he did Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So he's coming from that more TV background, but he is a director, delivered for this movie as well. It was a great film, great team-up movie. And it was a great end to Phase 1. It really left you thinking, what is the future going to give us in the future phases of the MCU? What more characters are we going to get? What character progressions are we going to get? What villains are we going to see the Avengers go up against next? It just offered so many great questions, and because we'd seen so many great films in Phase 1, it just made everything more excitable for the future of the MCU. So I will say why it's a second choice is I do feel like there's some movies in here that are not big winners and not big hitters. I think the Incredible Hulk movie, it's not an awful movie, but I do feel like it isn't the best of the bunch here. And it kind of, because it's not a winner, a superhero film, I think it's one that feels like it brings that down to the second choice. I think another one as well, the Iron Man 2 and Captain America, they're mediocre movies. I think the first Thor movie is pretty bad, to be honest with you. I don't think it's not the worst movie ever and the worst superhero movie. I'll get to that in my third picks. I think you know what I'm going to say if you've watched any of my content before, but it's just the first Thor movie, really looking at where Ragnarok is in the third movie. The first Thor movie does feel flat as well. It feels like it goes from a 0 to a 10 over the three phases. So they are kind of the letdowns. I feel like Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie and the Avengers are the ones what really stand out as the front runners. Maybe Captain America, the first Avenger after that, would be the third pick of my favourites out of this group. But that's why Phase 1 is my second pick on the case file today. It's not the worst out of the three picks, and I feel like if you've watched Phase 3 as your first pick, let's go on to your second pick as Phase 1, because it's well worth the second place prize in this order, this watch order. But that is my pick for second choice in the case file today. So my final choice on this case file, on this watch order, my watch order of MCU phases, the third pick and the one I would say, you avoid till you've watched the first two phases, my first two picks first, has got to go to phase number 2. And this is hard because I love the MCU. And I make this my third pick in the watch order for a reason, because it's got some really standout, well, I suppose 2 or maybe 1 really bad standout film here, which really just leaves a rotten taste in my mouth when I think about Phase 2. What I will first of all talk about is 2 of the picks that I think are really standout performers in this one. Two standout movies that I do feel like are good movies of Phase 2, because I still do think there is some good picks, some good films in Phase 2. I think I've got to say Guardians of the Galaxy. Well, let's first of all, before I'm fast forwarding too much here, ain't I? I've not given you the films. Let me give you the films of Phase 2. So we've got here it is. This is why I kind of didn't want to go through the list, because as a watch order cadet, this makes me sad seeing this movie as the first movie of Phase 2. So Phase 2 starts off in May of 2013, and the first movie of Phase 2 is Iron Man 3. And that movie is garbage to me. It is garbage, but we'll talk about that a little later on. But it starts off with Iron Man 3. Then we go to November of 2013 with Thor: Dark World, the second Thor movie. Then we have Captain America: The Winter Soldier in April of 2014. That is the second Captain America movie. Then we go to August of 2014 with Guardians of the Galaxy, the cosmic side debut of the MCU. Then we have Age of Ultron, Avengers Age of Ultron, the second Avengers movie in 2015, May 2015. And then we end Phase 2 with Ant-Man, the first Ant-Man movie in July of 2015. And look, that is Phase 2, that is the list. So, standout performers, as I said. First of all, it's got to be Guardians of the Galaxy. This is just refreshing. This is one of my this is, even though it's in my watch order, third in the watch order today, the phases, but Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favourite MCU movies. I think it's, the debut of the cosmic side of the MCU, meaning it's going into a lot more of the adventures in space outside of Earth, which is cool to see stories set, in different places, in different locations across the universe, which is really cool. It's got a great cast, led by Chris Pratt as Star-Lord. I think you've got some great additions here with, Rocket Raccoon, Bradley Cooper, Zoe Saldana as Gamora. You've got Drax. You've got Dave Bautista playing Drax. It's just a great overall cast here. I think the casting is fantastic, and James Gunn as a director, he is just unreal. This movie is. I feel like it inspired a lot more of what the future of the MCU has become, and a lot of the humor. I mean, I think Ragnarok has taken a lot from this movie, from the music choices to the comedy, the more added humor into this, and it worked. It was a payoff. It was a bit of a gamble. Guardians of the Galaxy, again, was a property that no one knew of. I personally didn't know of this property, and they revitalized this really rather unknown property and made a big blockbuster movie out of it. And it was all thanks to James Gunn, really, the director. He really was the visionary of this. I believe he's the writer of this, or the co-writer, and he blew it out the park. He was on fire. So that is my first standout pick of Phase 2, and I suppose again another really phenomenal movie of Phase 3. And again, this is why I can't say every movie in Phase 3 is a complete dud. I can say there's some gems in there, some real gems, and it's got to be Captain America: The Winter Soldier. In this story, we see it's just a totally different story from the first movie. First of all, it's set in modern times now, in present day, and we see the main villain is the Winter Soldier in this movie. Really, we see Bucky Barnes, who we're led to believe is dead in the first movie, come back, and he is now very much like he's superpowered, just like Captain America. He's got super strength, super skills, but he's like an assassin for Hydra. And it's a really emotional story, and it's a really good story, really gripping story. I believe this may be the Russo brothers' first MCU movie as well, Winter Soldier. Great film. It really a different MCU movie, and it really offers something different from the likes of Guardians of the Galaxy. Very different, and that's why I like this. It gives you've got, with the MCU as a whole, a varied bunch of movies. This is very much like a thriller type action movie. Just a great film, great film. The performances and the development of the character of the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, throughout the MCU is a very interesting one, because he goes from being very much a good guy character to a bad guy, and then we see him obviously now being more of a good guy again. And it's interesting to see that development and to see how he's progressed and to see where we are with Captain America here. It's, the second in his trilogy, and I feel like all three of his Captain America movies, the Chris Evans, Steve Rogers trilogy, are all very different movies. I feel like the third one is like a mini Avengers movie. This is a very much a more realistic look at the world of spies and espionage. And the first one was very much like a classic World War II movie. Or was it World War II? It was World War II. All very different movies, all very different. And but this is, again, a standout pick for me, the second Captain America movie. Great pick. But what are the duds? And I've just got to give you one bad pick, and this is the one pick that really makes me say that Phase 2 of the MCU is the worst and the last choice in your watch order for viewing pleasure, because Iron Man 3 is in there, and maybe people think I joke around with how much I dislike this movie, but I really do dislike this movie. It is it is just the thought of it now. It's just making me scratch my head and just sigh inside, because it's just I watched this in the movie in the cinemas, and I remember at the time people were saying this is a really good movie, really good sign off to the trilogy of Iron Man, and I like the first two movies, and then I go into it, and it was nothing like what I expected it to be. It was just felt like it didn't feel like an Iron Man. Maybe it's because it adds a lot of like the Christmas factor in. It's like a Christmas movie because the setting is Christmas throughout this movie. I think that the overall tone, like the whole deal with like who's the Mandarin and the fake Mandarin as well, it was just really off-putting. I feel like we don't see as much of Iron Man as we want to in this movie. There's too much Tony Stark, and it's maybe it over. Not that I think Tony Stark is a strong character, but I feel like they overplayed it, and it was overkill in this movie. They give us too much Tony Stark, and there was just tons of different elements in this movie that I disliked, and it just didn't deliver what I wanted to see in in the final movie of the trilogy of Iron Man movies, and I found it really disappointing, and I say that genuinely say that I found it to be a really disappointing movie. But you know what? We can't change time, can we? I wish there was a DeLorean in real life that you could go back in time. And I wish we could tell the filmmakers to make a great movie and just scrap whatever ideas they had for that movie. Scrap them and give us something completely different. It would have been better if we had more of a Captain America Civil War movie. Something similar to that. A big team-up movie in the last Iron Man movie. Just something different. It was just not a great movie overall. It didn't deliver as an action-packed film. The humor was off. The pacing, just everything about it just felt off for this movie for me. And this is why it is the dud of the MCU. It is the worst movie of the MCU for me personally. It is a movie that I will probably never watch again unless I am tied to a chair and told, you must watch this movie. And that is why Phase 2 is my third pick in the watch order on my case file today. And I feel sorry for the other movies in this case file, because you've got a fairly good Avengers movie, Age of Ultron in there. You've got Guardians of the Galaxy. You've got The Winter Soldier. Some great movies, but Iron Man 3 really drags that bunch down to make it the third choice in the watch order. So that is another assignment over, and hopefully the captain will be happy with my picks and he'll let me give, the free back rubs to everyone in the department, everyone who deserves a back rub. Hopefully I'll crack the case, the captain will give me the thumbs up and he'll say, yes, it's back rub time, AP, Cadet AP. But that is another case over, as I said, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this discussion today of my MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe, phases, choices, and the best watch order for the Watch Order Task Force. It's been really fun discussing these and really deep diving into these choices, and I really enjoyed it. As always, thank you very much for joining me on this Patreon exclusive podcast as well. It's been another very fun episode to look at and to put together as well for this case. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you next time for more Watch Order Task Force.